In the modern world, many men struggle with scattered attention, low motivation, emotional instability, and a constant craving for stimulation. Social media, pornography, fast entertainment, and instant gratification have created an environment where the brain is constantly chasing dopamine spikes. As a result, the natural reward system becomes dysregulated. Many people feel energized for brief moments, but quickly fall back into fatigue, boredom, or restlessness. Within this context, the practice of semen retention has gained increasing attention. While it has ancient roots in spiritual traditions such as Taoism, Hinduism, and certain monastic disciplines, many modern practitioners focus on one particular benefit: the stabilization of dopamine. Dopamine is often misunderstood as the pleasure chemical. In reality, dopamine is more closely tied to motivation, drive, focus, and reward anticipation. It is the chemical that pushes you to pursue goals, overcome challenges, and remain engaged with life. When dopamine levels fluctuate wildly due to overstimulation, the mind becomes unstable. When dopamine stabilizes, however, a person experiences clarity, calm determination, and consistent energy. Semen retention can contribute to this stabilization in profound psychological and behavioral ways. To understand the connection between semen retention and dopamine stabilization, it is important to first understand how dopamine functions. Dopamine operates as part of the brain's reward system. Whenever you pursue something beneficial, food, achievement, learning, connection, dopamine rises, reinforcing that behavior. This mechanism evolved to encourage survival and growth. However, modern stimuli hijack this system. Pornography, excessive masturbation, constant scrolling, and endless digital novelty flood the brain with unnaturally high dopamine spikes. These spikes are followed by sharp drops. Over time, the brain adapts by reducing dopamine receptors, making everyday life feel dull and uninteresting. This condition often leads to lack of motivation, brain fog, anxiety, emotional instability, difficulty focusing, low discipline. In such a state, the mind constantly seeks the next quick hit of pleasure. Semen retention, particularly when combined with reduced overstimulation, interrupts this destructive cycle. Frequent ejaculation, especially when combined with pornography, can create a powerful loop of dopamine spikes and crashes. The anticipation, stimulation, climax, and release all involve intense neurochemical changes. After orgasm, dopamine levels drop sharply, and the hormone prolactin rises. This hormonal shift contributes to the sense of fatigue, mental dullness, or lack of motivation many men experience afterward. When this cycle happens frequently, the brain begins to rely on these artificial spikes for stimulation. Semen retention breaks this pattern. Instead of repeatedly triggering intense highs followed by lows, the nervous system begins to reset. Without constant overstimulation, the brain gradually returns to its natural baseline. Dopamine receptors regain sensitivity, and the mind becomes less dependent on extreme stimuli. The result is not constant excitement, but something far more powerful: stability. The power of stable dopamine. When dopamine stabilizes rather than spikes uncontrollably, several important psychological shifts occur. Consistent motivation. Instead of bursts of motivation followed by exhaustion, motivation becomes steady. Tasks that once seemed boring, reading, studying, working, exercising, become naturally engaging again. This happens because the brain is no longer comparing ordinary activities to the intense stimulation of artificial pleasure sources. Simple effort becomes rewarding. Greater focus. High dopamine volatility disrupts attention. The brain becomes addicted to novelty and distraction. When dopamine stabilizes, attention span improves. The mind becomes capable of sustained focus. Many practitioners of semen retention report being able to work longer hours, read deeply, and maintain mental clarity. Emotional balance. Extreme dopamine swings can also create emotional instability. High stimulation produces excitement, but the crash can produce irritability, sadness, or apathy. With retention and reduced overstimulation, emotional states become more balanced. Instead of dramatic highs and lows, there is a quiet steadiness. This steadiness often feels like inner strength. Another powerful effect of semen retention is the restoration of the brain's natural reward system. When the brain is overstimulated, normal achievements no longer feel satisfying. Finishing a project, completing a workout, or learning something new may feel insignificant compared to the intense stimulation of pornography or instant gratification. However, when dopamine stabilizes, these natural rewards regain their power. You begin to feel genuine satisfaction from completing difficult work, improving your body through exercise, learning new knowledge, building meaningful relationships, creating something valuable. Life itself begins to feel rewarding again. This shift is one of the most transformative aspects of semen retention. Semen retention is not merely a biological process, it is a psychological discipline. Choosing not to indulge in immediate gratification requires self-control. Each time a man resists the urge to chase instant pleasure, he strengthens the neural pathways associated with discipline and delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is deeply connected to healthy dopamine function. Instead of constantly chasing short-term pleasure, the brain learns to value long-term rewards. This shift enhances resilience, patience, and goal-oriented behavior. Over time, the mind becomes less reactive and more intentional. Many practitioners describe semen retention as awakening a deeper drive within them. This is not simply a mystical idea. When dopamine stabilizes and receptors regain sensitivity, motivation naturally increases. The brain becomes more responsive to meaningful goals. Instead of wasting energy on endless stimulation, that energy is redirected toward physical training, career ambition, creative projects, spiritual development, leadership, and responsibility. The man who once struggled to get out of bed may suddenly feel a powerful desire to build, create, and improve his life. This is the constructive side of dopamine, the drive to move forward. Another effect of dopamine stabilization is a reduced dependency on external stimulation. Many people today feel uncomfortable with silence or stillness. They constantly reach for their phone, open new tabs, or search for entertainment. This behavior reflects a dysregulated dopamine system. Through semen retention and reduced overstimulation, the brain relearns how to be content without constant novelty. Simple experiences become enjoyable again. Walking outside, deep conversations, reading a book, reflecting in silence. The mind no longer feels desperate for the next dopamine hit. Instead, it becomes calm and grounded. Many traditions describe semen retention as conserving life force or sexual energy. While the language may differ across cultures, the psychological experience often feels similar. The energy once spent chasing stimulation begins to move toward productive pursuits. This redirection occurs partly because the brain is no longer locked into compulsive reward loops. Without constant dopamine spikes pulling attention toward short-term pleasure, mental energy becomes available for creativity, discipline, and growth. Men often report feeling more purposeful during retention. Goals become clearer. Effort becomes easier. Stable dopamine also encourages long-term thinking. High dopamine volatility pushes the brain toward immediate gratification. The mind wants results now, pleasure now, excitement now. But when dopamine stabilizes, patience increases. A man becomes more willing to invest effort into goals that may take months or years to achieve. This shift can profoundly affect areas such as career development, financial stability, health and fitness, personal mastery. Instead of constantly seeking the next quick reward, the individual becomes focused on building a meaningful life. Perhaps the most subtle effect of dopamine stabilization is the emergence of inner quiet. When the brain is addicted to stimulation, the mind feels restless. Thoughts jump rapidly from one desire to another. Through semen retention and reduced dopamine spikes, this mental noise begins to fade. The mind becomes clearer. Thoughts slow down. Awareness deepens. This quiet mental state is often associated with improved decision-making, greater self-awareness, and stronger emotional resilience. It becomes easier to observe impulses without acting on them. This is true psychological freedom. It is important to recognize that semen retention alone does not automatically stabilize dopamine. The broader lifestyle matters. For the brain to fully reset, other high-stimulation habits may need to be reduced, such as excessive pornography, constant social media use, endless digital entertainment, junk food and sugar binges. At the same time, healthy dopamine-supporting activities should increase. Exercise, sunlight exposure, deep work, meditation, meaningful social interaction. When these habits align with semen retention, the stabilization process becomes much more powerful. Ultimately, the goal is not to eliminate dopamine or suppress pleasure. Dopamine is essential for motivation, creativity, and survival. The goal is balance. When dopamine spikes constantly, life becomes chaotic. Motivation collapses. Attention fragments. Emotional stability disappears. But when dopamine stabilizes, something remarkable happens. The mind becomes focused. Energy becomes steady. Motivation becomes natural rather than forced. A man begins to feel in control of his impulses instead of controlled by them. Semen retention, when practiced with awareness and discipline, can contribute to the stabilization of dopamine by interrupting cycles of overstimulation and compulsive reward-seeking. By reducing intense dopamine spikes associated with frequent ejaculation and artificial stimulation, the brain gradually resets its reward system. This stabilization leads to a variety of psychological benefits: improved focus, consistent motivation, emotional balance, and a renewed appreciation for meaningful effort. Rather than chasing endless bursts of pleasure, the individual begins to experience a deeper and more sustainable form of satisfaction. Work becomes fulfilling. Growth becomes rewarding. Life regains a sense of direction. In a world driven by instant gratification, the stabilization of dopamine may be one of the most valuable mental shifts a person can achieve. Through practices like semen retention, discipline, and mindful living, many men discover a quieter but far more powerful state of being, a mind that is steady, motivated, and fully present in the pursuit of purpose. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and share the video.